Happy Friday! It's happy hour. Well, it's actually a few minutes before happy hour. As you get to know me a little bit better, you'll realize that I am always, always, always early. So here we go. I wanted to introduce you to the Witnessing My Own Story series. And also just give you a little bit of context for this group, because I think it's really important. The group's relatively new, for you to have a good understanding of kind of why we're even doing this. You know, what is our inward journey all about, and what am I trying to do by creating this group? So, first of all, you'll hear me talk a lot about the term monkey minds. And the whole idea that, what we really want to do is live life rather than live life through our thoughts. We want to live in the now. We want to enjoy life now. And unfortunately, these monkey minds of ours enslave us. We catch on things and we run on the journeys in our minds instead of living life as it is right now. So one of the big things that I'm trying to accomplish here is to help all of you through my story, and also through these mindfulness practices that we're sharing, help you write your own story. So the idea of being the witness to my own story is the fact, hey Jill, is the fact that I am not my story, although it is quite interesting, as you'll find out in this series. But it helps me separate myself a little bit from life so that I don't get buried in the minutia of life and all of my thoughts and all of my fears, so that I'm actually living in the moment. So the whole purpose of this is to kind of become a witness, to learn how to separate yourself from the craziness and the insanity and the wild thoughts that we have. So the monkey minds, as I've said before, is a wonderful servant, but it's a horrible master. So what we would really want to learn to do through mindfulness practice, and specifically meditation, is to use our minds as an instrument, so that it's serving us and we're not servants to the crazy thoughts that we have. So that's the goal, is we want to learn to use our minds as an instrument toward joy and not toward suffering. So as you've heard me say before, the greatest gift that you can ever give anybody else is working on yourself. And that's where it all has to start. So learn about that. Start learning the tools and techniques that will help you be a better you. And then you'll be better able to prepare and serve for someone else. So that's the idea that we're trying to accomplish here with our inward journey. So yourself first. Take care of you. Put the mask on yourself. Get yourself really, really healthy. Then you can effectively help the people that are around you. And as you get better and better, you can move that circle outward more and more and become more and more effective in helping the people that you love and the rest of the world and the planet as a whole eventually. So keep in mind that all of these thoughts and these emotions and these egos keep us away from life itself. So we really want to learn how to get inside and learn about who we really are, because the truth of the matter is, all our thoughts, our emotions, our egos, our identities, they're really just things that we've picked up along the way. So what we want to do is figure out what they are, learn whatever kind of lesson we can from it, but really find out who that core person is. Because if you think about it, life starts at birth. And when you're born, that's fresh and new, and that's who you really are. That's how you're manifesting as a human being. Everything else, so that's the core of your being, is who you are the day that you're born. Everything else is just stuff you've picked up along the way. Your thoughts, emotions, judgments, people's personality, people trying to tell you how you should be and how to gauge who you should be and how you should act. These are all inputs from the outside world that happen after birth. But to know life, to really know who we really are, we have to journey inward to the core of who you are, because your physical life was just piled on after. So we got to weed our way through that on an inward journey to get through to who we really are. So we need to experience life as it is, and not as we think it is, not clouded by all the stuff that the world has piled onto us. So that's kind of the purpose of the group, is to learn how to do that. But that takes practice. I mean, we're not going to just automatically be able to do that. So we're going to have to learn some of the tools and tricks that it takes to quiet down that noise that we are constantly hearing in our heads. And that's the purpose, to help you learn the tools that it takes to make that inward journey and discover who you really are, and then start to use your mind as an instrument rather than letting it run around like a drunken monkey. So the next question, I guess the obvious question, is why let me share it with you? I mean, who am I and Why talk to me about this? What are my credentials, so to speak? And we can talk about the obvious ones. I've always been fascinated with the human mind. So I went to the University of Michigan and got a degree in psychology. And after that, I wanted to share what I learned with everybody else. And I went and got a master's degree in social work. So from a formal education perspective, that's the background. But I also taught as an adjunct professor. I taught psychology. So the human mind has always fascinated me, even before I started into this spiritual journey inward that I've been taking for the past 6 or 7 years. But I've always been fascinated with birth and death. So my volunteer services, as you'll find out along the way, were related to birth and death. So whenever I had time to reach out and serve in the community, I was doing something that had something to do with birth or death. Yeah, I don't know why there's a choppy connection. I'm hoping it's videoing good and the replay won't have that. So I'm going to do my best to just push through this. And the last time this happened, the actual replay worked out okay. So bear with me. Hopefully it's going to get a little bit better. And if not, I'm sure the replay will be better. So let's just stick with this for now. But the thing with birth and death is that these are the two times in our life that we are closest to who we really are. We're closest to our core. So in my background, talking a little bit about me and my experiences, I did a really, really good job of building the outside. I was a competitive bodybuilder and fitness competitor and a champion, and I wanted championships and trophies and all of that, only to find out that I had built a really nice house, but there was nobody home. There was nothing on the inside. I had no inner foundation to keep all the balls in the air. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of us are doing. We are trying to juggle all the time, all the life's responsibilities, all those things outside of ourselves. We're trying to juggle them. And unfortunately, we're dropping the balls. And because we just don't have that inner core, we just really aren't going inward for our direction and our advice. So that was my big lesson in life, was I needed to stop all the movement and all the external input that I was getting from the outside world. And I needed to dive inward and figure out who I really am. So that's why I feel it's important for me to share my story with you. I'm not my story. I mean, that doesn't define me, but my story is what influences who I tend to think I am. So until we realize that we're kind of imprisoned in our minds, that all of these inputs have told us who we think we are, till we realize that, we can't get out of it. So the idea is learn to witness it, step away. Meditation helps you do that. It quiets down the noise and helps you look from a different perspective. And then hopefully you will learn to separate yourself and dig a little deeper for your answers. So mindfulness practice, and especially meditation, actually changed my life. And what you'll find out is it actually saved my life. The point of my sharing this is to share with others what I've learned, because the truth of the matter is there really isn't any other. That we all are in this together. We all want the same things. So what I've done, first of all, is I've written a book of my story, my life story. It's called The Chameleon Effect. And it talks about all of these different things that I'll be sharing with you very much in detail. And hopefully that's going to be published soon. But I'm going to give you guys a quick peek into sort of what it was all about. And if your door opens at all, even just a little bit, if you resonate with anything that I say here and you see the value of meditation, you will start understanding how important this is. And you will make space for it. You won't be able to stop yourself from making space. Life, or your inner core of who you really are, wants to express itself. So all we need to do is kind of just open the door a little bit and open it inward instead of outward all the time. The problem is we have all these walls up. All this constant noise is going on in our heads, the noise that I continually call our monkey minds. Thoughts about the past, fears about the future, everybody else's opinions, all the identities that we picked up along the way. They're all clouding our ability to experience life fully in the now. So we've got some big time work to do. And hopefully I can help you do that. We need to quiet down those noises, and we need to connect to the core of who we really are. There's a wisdom deep inside of us that holds answers for us. You know, I wanted to be a therapist. And you know what? Now I'm a coach, because I don't have your answers. I've got some really good questions, and I've got some really good techniques to help you find your answers. But your answers are yours, and you have to do the work. So all I can really do is give you some techniques. so that I can show you the path, but you've got to walk on it. So hopefully we can do this together, and it will be something that's helpful to you and hopefully as life-changing for you as it was for me. So here's a little bit of my story. I'll give you some of the basics. I'm the youngest child of 5 kids. We grew up in a lower middle class military family. My father was in the Navy for 29 years, so he was a career Navy guy. Because of that military family issue, we moved. We moved 6 times before I was 18 years old, and 3 of those moves happened during high school. So you can imagine, as an adolescent, how I felt about that. I wasn't very happy about it at all. I was trying to be in basketball and cheerleading, and I had friends and locker combinations to try to remember, and it basically resulted in a lot of instability. And I had no peer network, no support system that was consistent, and I was constantly looking to others for affirmation. What else do you do when you're a teenage girl, and every time you make friends, they're moved. You move again, and then you make the cheerleading squad, but then you got to tell them you're leaving because you're going to move again. By the time you get to the new school, the cheerleaders have already been picked. So that was this situation going on with me in my adolescence. It was just this continual upheaval, which didn't really let me figure out at all who I was or what was important to me. I also grew up in a very traditional household. So my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and her belief was women were supposed to stay at home. I mean, what good is a career for a woman? We're just supposed to be housewives and mothers. So when I graduated from high school as valedictorian, and in spite of all those moves, because that was the only thing that stayed constant was math, academics. So I grabbed onto those like a lifeline, did really, really well, graduated valedictorian, was offered a full scholarship to the University of Michigan, which I declined because my mother didn't really believe that that was a valuable thing for a woman to have. So instead of that, I met this guy that I met through my grandmother's church, somewhere in the middle of all of those moves, and I connected with him, and I married him, and we had kids right away. So the military influence, again, came through you'll notice I always start my Facebook Live posts early. Yeah, in the military, 15 minutes is early, and on time is late. So for me, it's so funny, I'll set an appointment, and I'm always early, always. The other thing that was an influence on me was that I got straight A's, but if I got an A minus, my dad wanted to know what the minus was for. So all this pleaser, perfectionist, chameleon type behavior where I just kind of took on the personality of whoever was around me. So when I met this guy around 16 or 17 years old, I fell madly in love with him. And he was involved. He was the deacon's son of a very strict, conservative, non-traditional Christian religion. So when I say that, what I mean is it is Christian. They believe in Christ as their personal savior, and they're a very, very devoted group of people. Beautiful, beautiful people, actually. But they had a lot of rules. A lot of rules related to women not having much power, not having much of a voice in the church. Rules related to Sabbath keeping and very strict Sabbath keeping. So sunset Friday night to sunset Saturday night was the Sabbath. And you just couldn't do anything really that was your own thing on that day. And there were some very strict guidelines. Clean and unclean meat laws, they really, really observed those as well. And so we ate no pork, no seafood, nothing like that. So this is a huge change from the world that I grew up in. But it was stable. I mean, it was steady. This was a family. This was somebody who stayed in one place. And he was the deacon's son. And so I fell for him. He was a great guy. Instead of going to school, to college, I got married and had a couple of beautiful little babies. So that was kind of my start with the beginning of my little story, just to give you an idea of some of the disruption and upheaval that started out in my life. Now, I had a relatively calm upbringing. My parents were wonderful. They married for 52 years, and there wasn't that kind of upheaval. It was it was almost a harder thing because it wasn't blatant challenges. It was just little things, little normal life things that dig and poke at you, but they made me who I am. And they all contributed to this person that's sitting right here in front of you. The notion of the chameleon comes through a lot in my future story. So I'm not going to cover too much more right now, but I'm going to give you that to chew on a little bit. And I want you to think a little bit about how some of that background might affect moving from an open family that really didn't go to church, didn't have much of a religious belief at all, to sort of morphing myself into this religious girl who was married to the deacon's son, who was, by the way, an organic farmer. So there were lots of influences going on there that were, again, piling on to me, who I was becoming, who I thought I was, and all the things that created walls for my growth and made it very challenging for me to see who I was and what I really wanted. So hopefully that's piqued your interest a little bit. Each series will tell you a little bit more about the craziness that this beginning led me into, and then ultimately how I got out of it and why this is so important. This meditation, this idea of mindfulness and practicing it and bringing it into your life on a regular basis is so important to me and so near and dear to my heart. So I appreciate you for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend and look forward to the next scene, and I will tell you a little bit more about how that all went. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care.